So, hello everyone. My name is Meredith Lyric, and I run the Violence Intervention and Prevention Center, or VIP Center, here on campus. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about campus safety. Also, our Senior Director of Public Safety is here, and he's got some great information to share with you after I'm done. So I'd like to begin with just a trigger warning. I know that we are going to be talking about different forms of interpersonal violence here for the next 10 or 15 minutes. So that is specifically around sexual assault on college campuses, dating violence, stalking. So if you need to take a minute, excuse yourself, get a breather, please feel free. We're all adults in the room, and so take the time that you need to take care of yourself. And we're going to begin with a video. It was done by Cincinnati.com, and it focuses on faculty, staff, and students at Xavier University, so a very similar campus to ours. And it really helps contextualize this issue of sexual assault on college campuses. Do I have a clicker?
Unfortunately, not a lot of people want to talk about all of this. I mean, who wants to have the sex talk in college?
I think so many people are afraid about having a grown-up conversation about it, especially on campus. Well, I don't want to get into that. Why not?
Sexual assaults on campus is an epidemic. It's something that is pervasive, it's in the culture.
Brock Turner is accused of raping a woman in front of a Stanford frat house.
Columbia University senior Emma Sulkowicz is hoping to call attention to sexual assaults on campus.
A sexual assault scandal that has rocked Baylor University.
UNC Chapel Hill mishandled sexual misconduct cases.
Texas A&M University is under fire this morning.
Lawyers say the University of Central Florida runs a kangaroo court where your kids' rights are thrown right out the window.
We spoke with a college student who says he was suspended from Colorado State University Pueblo for having consensual sex with his friend.
One sexual assault on campus is one too many, but one person denied due process is one too many.
We all need a wake-up call because what's going on is not okay.
A woman who's dead drunk cannot consent. You are raping her. I really mean this. We got to talk about this.
I mean, this certainly isn't a conversation that I've ever had with my friends.
We have not figured out a good way to talk about it without getting uncomfortable.
Consent, boundaries, sex, power, control, healthy relationships.
The way people view these cases depends on whether you have a son or a daughter.
This made me feel like, I was wearing this huge sign on my chest that said, warning, drowning, push me in deeper, been sexually assaulted, she accepts it, just keep going.
It's going to be pretty unlikely that if you sexually assault someone, that anything's going to happen to you.
And if you care about your students and the way they live life on that campus, you're going to have a conversation about this because lives can be literally altered.
The question was, how did it affect my world, right? Yeah. So that's how it affected my world. It destroyed it.
So let's talk about it. Our students are expecting us to have these conversations here on campus, and I want to open this conversation up for dialogue here today so that you feel empowered and equipped to begin to have this conversation with the student that you're sending here to Creighton University. And the one thing I can tell you is that Creighton and our office, we care so much about your students, and we never want anything bad to happen to them. And so we're committed to providing comprehensive education for them around consent and bystander intervention as they enter this campus community. We have 3 main touchstones for that. One, they will get a video that they do online over the summer, a Title IX training. And then the first day of school on new student orientation is called Call to Creighton. And part of that is Call to Consent. And so that's where we have an hour with them to really talk with them about consent, what the policies are of Creighton, so that nobody's confused about what the rules are here, that we're all operating from the same baseline. And then we know, like, adults talking to them for an hour, like hour after hour after hour that day, becomes tedious. And so now we have comprehensive peer education, where peers are talking to other students, to your incoming freshmen, about consent and bystander intervention, so that they can have those conversations with people who are upperclassmen, so that they can get a sense of the culture that they're walking into and the type of culture that they want to create on campus.
Unfortunately.
So let's look at the consent definition together. I want you all to know what your students are being held to here at Creighton University. Consent is affirmative by definition. It is an explicitly communicated mutual agreement in which all parties make an informed, voluntary, and active decision to engage in a specific sexual activity. And it's the responsibility of any person wishing to engage in sexual activity with another person to determine the capacity of that potential sexual partner to provide consent. So let's talk a little bit about some of these italicized words. What's explicitly communicated? It's verbal and nonverbal communication that's giving that yes. And one of the things that we talk to students about is that it cannot be, that a yes cannot be inferred by the absence of a no, right? So if somebody is passive or silent or looking away or just laying limp, that sometimes that's actually a neurobiological response to trauma, fight, flight, or freeze. And so we want people to be actively engaging in the decisions that they're making regarding any sexual contacts, kissing, hugging, any of that type of stuff. And then we have informed. So informed is saying that you really appreciate that everybody agrees to the who, what, where, when, and how of the activity. Voluntary means that there's no force, fraud, coercion. And coercion is super important on a college campus because as we're looking for that explicitly communicated, sometimes the no is given in like a backing away or I don't really want to. Not tonight, I don't feel comfortable with that. Or just kind of some of that silence that we were talking about before. And so we're really, when somebody is coercing a sexual activity, it really looks like pushing beyond that initial no. But you're so pretty, but I really want to. You're so special. It would mean so much to me. Going on and on and on until somebody is worn down and feels like they have to consent or that they have to say yes, even though they don't feel comfortable with that activity. So that's really important because I think when we're talking about teenagers, sometimes that's what it looks like, is somebody being worn down beyond their initial no. And then active. That active means that you have the right to say no, you have the right to stop sexual activity at any point in time, that it can be revoked, that just because you've hooked up before in the past doesn't mean that you're going to tonight, that maybe you go home with somebody and you say yes to kissing, that that's what you feel comfortable with. The going home and kissing does not infer consent to other types of touching. So all those things are the kind of active decision-making that we want students to engage in. The other part of our definition really talks about capacity. So let's talk about what incapacitation is. It's defined as the inability, temporarily or permanently, to make rational, reasonable decisions, right? And when we were talking about that informed consent, that really it's the who, what, where, how, that people who are incapacitated don't really appreciate the fact that they're engaging in sexual activity. So we want to make sure that we're assessing for that. And it's literally written in our definition, as we saw here, that it's the responsibility of each person to determine the capacity. So if you're out drinking with someone, not you all, but like our students, that they have to be the one who's determining whether or not that other person is incapacitated. How are they supposed to do that, right? So we give them these indicators of incapacitation. We teach them this. We give them a handout that they can stick on their board or on their fridge in their room. So if somebody's got lack of control of physical movements, if they're stumbling, if you have to help them up, if you have to hold them, if they're slurring their words, if they've been vomiting, any of those types of things, if they're blacking out, those are all key indicators. No contact should be happening. And we always say, just give a phone number, connect on social media, connect another day after the person has sobered up and has the right to make, responsible decisions. That each person is an autonomous person imbibed with human dignity, right? And we want to make sure that we're respecting each person's human dignity. And the reason that matters is because last year, so 2017-18, the previous academic year, my office saw 60 cases of sexual misconduct. So when we're talking about sexual misconduct, we're talking about sexual assault. Sexual assault being broadly defined as sexual contact that happened without consent. So it can kind of fall under two main categories, non-consensual sexual touching and then non-consensual sexual intercourse. So kind of groping or fondling or rape. We also see a number of cases of relationship misconduct. Here on college campuses, relationship misconduct is usually around dating violence. And I'm going to talk to you just briefly about dating violence, just so that as you're listening to your students, as they're talking to you about maybe relationships that they're getting into, that you can assess for a couple things. Is that person isolating them from family and friends? Does their boyfriend or girlfriend want to be on the phone when they're talking to mom and dad or grandma and grandpa to hear what they're saying? Are they isolating them from friends? Are they controlling who is their friends, what outfit they're wearing, where they go, who they see, when they can go places? What about shaming or belittling, making them feel bad? These are all indicators that maybe there's a concerning thing happening in that relationship, and you want to connect your student with the VIP Center so that they have a confidential space where they can process their relationship and talk through options. The other thing is stalking. We always kind of have this image in our culture that stalking happens, that there's like a stranger who's lurking outside of a window, peeking in. But actually, most stalking instances happen by current or former partners. And what stalking can look like on a college campus is repeated text messages. Just 60, 70, 80 a day. And maybe that person gets blocked. So then they're on social media, they're following them on social, they're creating new accounts, they're checking in with their friends. Hey, where's so-and-so? Maybe they're showing up in their res hall or outside their classes because all of a sudden they somehow found out your student's schedule. Any of those types of things should just be a little warning flag for you, like, hey, I'd like you to go check in with the VIP Center so you can have a deeper conversation about what's going on here, so somebody else can have eyes on this situation, can assess what's going on. What the VIP Center can do is really support students, faculty, and staff, because all of these things that we've talked about here today, they happen here at Creighton University. They happen on college campuses across the nation and even outside of college, but it's important to recognize that we're not immune here. That being said, nobody has to walk this experience alone. When you're a victim of violence, it can feel incredibly isolating and shaming, and we just want to make sure that people know that there's a confidential space that they can come and have supportive conversations, have somebody who will listen to them and support them, and talk them through their options and resources. So sometimes that's talking about academic or medical, on and off campus resources such as counseling, maybe accommodations around work and housing. But then there are times where people want to report, they want to know about their reporting options. And so we really talk them through whether or not they have having rights to protection orders, reporting to law enforcement, reporting to Title IX. And I think an important component of that is that we really talk them through the entire process. Who will be involved, the timelines, what information they'll have to share, who will have access to that information, what decisions, what choices they can make within that process, and what things are going to be out of their control, so that they have a really robust picture of what's next so that they can make a choice. Because the thing we know about survivors is that making choices, having autonomy, is part of the healing process. So the VIP Center is really here to help people begin to have a sense of power back in their own lives. This is a look inside of the VIP Center. We've got some really beautiful, comfortable furniture. This is an advocacy office. I always like to show our students this so that they don't feel afraid when they come in. We have a beautiful space that the university has made for us. The other thing that the VIP Center does, the violence intervention and prevention. So we're responsible for prevention education on campus. One of the largest things we do is the Green Dot Bystander Intervention Program. So I'm going to encourage all of you to have your students stop by the VIP Center's table and talk to one of my students who will be staffing the table tomorrow. Green Dot is an incredible program. It has three main components of it. One is really learning what sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking are, and learning how to identify the warning signs. What are the red flags as a bystander? Right? We used to do prevention education that was like talking to potential victims or potential perpetrators, but the reality is most of us are going to be bystanders, and we don't really know what to do. So we talk to students about what are your barriers? What are your personal barriers? Maybe you're shy. Maybe you're naturally conflict avoidant, and that's okay. Maybe you've got relationship barriers, social barriers, like I don't want to be a narc or a rat or the party police, right? Like I'll suffer social ramifications if I'm the one who intervenes in this situation. So we understand those things, and we never ask anyone to go beyond what their personal barriers are. So then we equip them with tools. We equip them with what the principles of Green Dot are, and they get to practice them so that they can see, like, regardless of what your personal and social barriers are, there's always something that you can do in that moment to prevent violence from happening. We also do escalation workshops, which is really about dating violence, healthy and unhealthy relationships on college campuses. Lunch and learns, we host What Were You Wearing, and then Take Back the Night. So these are pictures from Take Back the Night. And I'd like to invite all of you, and maybe pass this on to your students, invite them. What Were You Wearing is an art exhibit that where Creighton survivors have shared their stories with this community, and then we have visual representation of the clothes that they were wearing, along with their stories of what happened when they were sexually assaulted. And we host this art exhibit in order to dispel the very pervasive, damaging rape culture myth that what somebody's wearing, especially what a woman was wearing, has anything to do with being sexually assaulted. And I think that there's a good representation here of what students were wearing when they were sexually assaulted. So please invite your students. Also invite them to stop down. We're in Lower Brandeis, right under the dining hall. You're always welcome, and I'll pass it on to Mike.
Thanks, Meredith. Good afternoon. Welcome to Creighton. I'm Mike Reiner, Senior Director of Public Safety here. I arrived here at the university about 2.5 years ago after a 26-year career as a security forces officer in the United States Air Force. My team and I are very passionate about protecting and serving the Creighton community, and to be very specific, our number one priority is protecting our students, your sons and daughters. So these are the topics I'll hit on this afternoon briefly. And if you have any questions, I'll be at the reception this evening, and I'll also have an info table tomorrow. You can ask me any questions. So first, where are we? Pretty easy to remember, 2222 Burt Street. So we're right down the hill from Dagelman Circle, just north of McGloin Hall. My team is made up of non-sworn but armed public safety officers. We're not sworn law enforcement, so we don't have the authority to arrest anybody, but we are armed and we do protect and serve 24/7, 365. We have 8-hour shifts. On each shift, we have a shift supervisor, anywhere from 3 to 5 officers working at any given time, and a dispatcher. We work, if necessary, we need additional resources, we can call Omaha Police. We're in the Northeast Precinct and have a great relationship with the captain in the Northeast Precinct, and they'll respond very quickly. Or we can also work with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. We have a lot of technology on campus, over 350 cameras, and that number keeps going up. We're probably approaching 400 different sensors now across the campus that we use in all the public spaces, all the outdoor areas, most of the indoor areas, but not the private areas of the residence halls. We also have access control on all the facilities, mostly on the entrances, but also on some of the interior spaces. For example, if you walk through Harper, you're going to see access control on almost every classroom. The video, we do store 60 days. We used to store only about 10 days, and we always found out about day 12, somebody would come in and report something that happened to their car. We've now increased that to 60 days. We've been able to solve a lot more crimes, both petty vehicle damage all the way up to more serious crimes. The other piece of technology that we introduced to the campus about 2 years ago is the PALM, Peace of Mind Safety Device. I'm going to show you a brief video and then I'll tell you a little more about it.
You're at a party when you see that guy from class who is always asking you out. He's headed your way, and you really don't want to talk to him. Lucky for you, you've got the Palm, a keychain-sized device that can get you out of a variety of situations. You click it once, and Palm Out auto rings back so you can take a fake phone call and get away. Or, if you wanted to call in reinforcements, you can use the Palm to send a discreet SOS text message to your friends for help. Now, your friends can swoop in and help you out of an awkward situation. Now you're leaving the party, and your ride never showed, so you decide to walk. A group of guys start to talk to you, and you don't feel safe. Tap the Palm 3 times, and campus security is alerted with your GPS location. No fumbling, typing numbers, or dialing. Even if you've misplaced your keys, the Palm can help you find them. Just clip the Palm onto your keychain and use the mobile app to help locate them. Palm. Peace of mind in the palm of your hand.
So in the past 2 years, we have about 1,250 of these devices that we've distributed to on campus, primarily to residential students. It is just a key fob sized device that's a Bluetooth enabled microphone and speaker paired with paired with an app on your smartphone. The student can pair the device and then put the phone away. I don't want your students walking around with an iPhone 12 at 2 in the morning looking at Snapchat. Put the phone away, you carry the device in your hand, and if you get into any trouble, you click it 3 times. 3 things happen immediately. First, a phone call is initiated through your cell carrier. So that phone call, if you're on campus, will come directly to my dispatcher. If you're off campus, anywhere in the United States that you have phone service, it's going to go to the local 911. At the same time, through a data connection that's completely independent of your cell service, so it could go through Wi-Fi or whatever connection, we're going to get a pop-up of a Google map, a really loud siren at my dispatch, and it'll show the exact geolocation of your student, and it'll track them until we find them. The third thing is that we'll get a personal profile. So now we know who we're looking for, we know where they are, and we're talking to them through the device. They've never touched their phone. It's a great opportunity for students to have that peace of mind when they're walking around, to just carry this device, punch it up if they need it, and if they don't need it, put it back in their pocket. The other reason that I chose this device over a lot of the competitors is there's times when your students want help, but they don't want us showing up. Maybe they're at a party, there's underage drinking, or there's some drugs there, or just something, they just don't want to be the one that called the cops. There's options where you can hold the button, and then when it vibrates, you send a signal, and it'll either send a text or it'll call a friend from your contacts that you've pre-identified, and then that text could say something like, if you get this text, come get me. And it'll include a hyperlink to their location, so now their roommate or another friend knows where they are, knows they need help, and they can come bail them out. I don't care where the help comes from, whether it's from me or from a friend, I just want them to get the help they need to get out of an awkward situation. You can also do a fake phone call. That one's more popular with faculty and staff to get out of meetings, but you just hold the button and it rings your own phone, and you can make it whoever you want. There's also an ability to do a virtual overwatch. So the phone already knows where you are, you drop a pin at the destination, put in how long it should take you to walk there, and then hit start and put the phone away. So maybe you do it as you're going to walk to your car. Now you walk there, if you get to your car safely, you hit cancel, nothing happens. My dispatcher doesn't know where you went. For example, say a 19-year-old student was walking to a bar. They could put that in there. We're not going to find out they were walking to a bar. We don't care. But if they don't make it, now we do care, and we're going to get an alert. We'll know where they started, where they walked, and where they are currently, and we're going to go find them, or we're going to call the local police wherever they are to come help them. I could talk all day about the Palm, I often do, but I'm going to cut myself short. I'll answer all your questions about the Palm later tonight or tomorrow. Oops. If you want to know a lot about annual security report or about security policies, or if you just can't sleep tonight, go on our website. Our annual security and fire report is on there. This is the report that's required by federal law. It does contain a lot of great information. There's mandatory areas that we have to cover, anything from sexual assault and sexual harassment policy, fire safety, and probably the one that gets most attention, the crime and fire statistics for the past 3 calendar years. It's required by federal law. Every school has these statistics in their reports, just not all of them are as good as ours. So check it out. I'll have hard copies tomorrow as well if you'd like one. There's two main ways that we communicate with your students about public safety information. The first one, Creighton Alert, is there's something bad happening that you need to do something about right now. There's a tornado in Omaha. That is something that we sometimes have to deal with. So a CU alert will go out immediately through text. If you don't confirm the text, it can go text to voice, it can go email. I generally have it in that order. So if I don't answer the text, then it calls me with a text to voice, and if I don't acknowledge either, then I get an email. But that is an immediate, time-sensitive situation you've got to do something in response to. The other one is a campus crime bulletin, and that's just a way that we inform the community something bad happened, it's not happening anymore, but you need to know about it, but you don't need to do anything at this very moment. There's nothing time-sensitive about it. And we send those out by email. We don't need to wake up anybody at 2 in the morning to tell them something that they don't need to take action on. So what are the most common crimes here? Thankfully, they're the easiest ones to prevent, and that's petty larceny, which almost always is an unlocked car door, items taken out of the front seat that were in plain sight, or an unlocked dorm room, and it's usually items that are just easily pilferable and not easily identifiable. So cash, small jewelry, laptops, cameras, things like that. We rarely have somebody actually smash a window of a car and take things out. We did have, about 2 years ago, one guy, and he smashed and grabbed several cars, and then we caught him, and he got extradited to Minnesota. But no offense to the Minnesotans, but he did something worse up there. So most of the break-ins, though, that we have aren't even break-ins. They're people that are checking door handles, walking through the parking lot. They find a door that's open, and they rummage through, grab what's worth something to them, and then they move on. So lock your doors, both in your vehicles and in your room, and you'll avoid a lot of those things. I'll talk briefly about drugs and alcohol. So first, alcohol. The TRACK program is Track to Recovery from Alcohol Abuse at Creighton. This is primarily a medical safety program. Yes, there will be some kind of disciplinary consequence later on, but at the moment, public safety's role, we're not in this for discipline. We are in this to make sure that your son or daughter who's heavily intoxicated gets the medical help that they might need. So when a student is found on campus and appears to be intoxicated, which is usually identified by a member of residence life staff, often the desk receptionist, they call us. We bring the campus health aide that you heard about in the last briefing. So the campus health aide is looking at vital signs, taking a medical assessment of the student, then we're taking a breathalyzer. If the student is over 0.15, they are automatically going to be entered into the TRACK program. If they're below a 0.15, but there's other medical indications, for example, they can't stop vomiting, can't retain consciousness, then the campus health aide will call the on-call physician, and that doctor will make the decision at that time whether it's necessary for the student to enter the TRACK program. So if a student is identified to go to the TRACK program, we transport them across the street to the CHI Health Emergency Department, and then they're checked into the emergency department. And then they assess them, and when they feel they're safe, that they can be alone, then we can return them to campus. So again, it's not primarily to punish or to discipline a student. This is a program to make sure that they have medical safety if they've become severely intoxicated. All alcohol and misdemeanor level drugs are handled by Office of Community Standards and Wellbeing as far as the disciplinary actions. But if there are any felony level drugs, we do call the Omaha Police. We don't bring the police into the res hall. We'll take the student and the evidence to my building, and they'll meet the Omaha police officers there. And then the Omaha Police do have the option to arrest or cite them. And if it's a felony level drug, they'll usually be arrested. What is a felony here, and what are we seeing? The most common two things are THC, wax, and oil. If you're not familiar with THC, wax, and oil, ask your sons and daughters, because most high school kids are well aware of this now. It's all the THC is leached out of the marijuana into a concentrated form, and it's used in a vape, and it's very potent, but it's not good, and it is a felony in this state. Then Douglas County Attorney will prosecute as a felony. The other thing we see is misuse of prescription drugs, and it's primarily Adderall. So if your student has been prescribed Adderall and they share that with a friend, they're liable to be arrested for felony distribution. And if they receive that from a friend and it's not their prescription, it's felony possession of a controlled substance. So those are the two that we see the most often. Thankfully, it's very rare that a student has been arrested. We provide several safe transportation options, and this I look at this as an important part of public safety because if they can get to their location without walking and it's a safe ride, then we all win. So during the day, we have the Blue Jay Shuttle. All these routes are on the website. We have an east route and a west route. They're 20-minute loops. We run about 20 hours per day with the fixed routes. At night, we switch to the J Ride. So from 9 till 11, the J Ride just follows kind of a continuous figure 8 of both the east and west route. And then from 11 to 2 a.m., we go to an on-call very similar to like an Uber or a Lyft, except it's free. And we run from a very large rectangle, 15th to 38th, Dodge to Cumming, which encompasses all of our campus, as well as most of the apartments and many of the housing areas out in Gifford Park where a lot of our students live. The third option is Zipcar is not directly affiliated with the university. It's a private vendor, but we do have a partnership with them where they offer this service. You can become a member of Zipcar for about, right now it's $15 a year, and then you can rent a car on a short-term basis, as short as an hour for $9.50 an hour. We have about 1,200 people that are registered users. It's a great option if your student is not going to use a car a lot. Don't spend the money on sending a car here, paying insurance, and buying a parking permit. Just give them a little bit of money for a Zipcar, and then they can use it if they need it. And that leads to the last area I'm going to talk about, which is parking. We are an urban campus. Parking is challenging. If you're going to park anywhere on campus, you will need to have a parking permit. They're $360 for the year. We drop that rate after each of the major breaks. So think about it carefully. Maybe you don't want to send a car right away at the beginning of the year. Let your student get used to campus, figure out their rhythm, and if they really need a car, bring it back after fall break. They've saved $90, and they could use that on Uber or Lyft. I don't want to show preference to either service. The other thing with parking is there's 2 parking garages that are covered parking for your students. There's also some really large surface parking lots. They're all within about 1/4 to 1/2 mile of where your sons and daughters are going to live, but 1/2 mile when it's 12 degrees in the winter will feel like a really long distance. So you may hear that there's no parking at Creighton. There is parking. We always have vacancies. They're just not as close as everybody would like. That's probably the reality of anybody that works in an urban environment. So just think about it. If you don't really need the car, I would recommend you don't bring it. The last slide, I'll show you the map of where the parking areas are. All this information will be put onto the app, but you can also look it up on our website. Just go to thecreighton.edu and look for public safety.